At a friend's wedding, she leaned over and said, "Don't get any ideas. Marriage is for men who deserve it." I smiled. But when the bride tossed the bouquet, what happened next left her speechless. I've always believed that people tell you who they are. You just have to be willing to listen. For 2 years, I was in a relationship with a woman named Claire. On the surface, things were good. We lived together in a house that I own, we had a good social life, and we were, by all accounts, a successful couple. I run a risk management firm, which is a dry way of saying I spend my days analyzing worst-case scenarios and creating contingency plans. It's a job that has made me very good at seeing the cracks in a foundation before the whole thing comes crashing down. Claire comes from a family that values appearances above all else. They have money, but it's the kind of money that's more about status than security. They never approved of me. I was self-made, not from their world. They saw my practicality as a lack of ambition and my quiet confidence as a weakness. Claire, I thought, was different. I thought she saw me for who I was. But over the last year, I started to notice her adopting her family's condescending tone. Little comments here and there, disguised as jokes about my clothes, my car, my friends. I was listening, and I didn't like what I was hearing. The relationship was on a short leash. I wasn't a simp, and I wasn't going to fund a lifestyle for someone who didn't respect me. We had a clear arrangement. I owned the house, but she contributed a set amount for bills each month from her job in marketing. It was a partnership, or so I thought. I had decided, privately, that if things didn't improve, I was going to end it. I was just waiting for one final, undeniable piece of data. That data arrived yesterday, at our friend's wedding. My best friend David was marrying his longtime girlfriend, Maria. It was a beautiful ceremony, the kind that makes you feel hopeful about the world. Claire was on her best behavior, playing the part of the perfect, supportive girlfriend. But during the reception, as we sat at our table, watching the happy couple have their first dance, the mask slipped. She had had a few glasses of champagne, and her condescension was bubbling to the surface. She leaned over to me, a smug little smile on her face, and gestured towards David and Maria on the dance floor. "Don't get any ideas," she whispered, her voice laced with a sweet poison. "Marriage is for men who deserve it." The music was loud, but her words cut through it like a razor. It wasn't a joke. It was a verdict, a judgment on my worthiness, delivered with a smile. She was telling me in no uncertain terms that I was not on her level, that I was a placeholder, a convenience, but not a man she would ever consider worthy of marriage. I didn't react. I didn't get angry. My mind, trained to see the worst-case scenario, simply accepted the data she had provided. This was the crack in the foundation. This was the point of failure. And my contingency plan kicked in immediately. I just looked at her, smiled a calm, pleasant smile, and said, "Of course not." She squeezed my hand, thinking she had put me in my place. She had no idea what she had just set in motion. She thought she was the one in control, the one holding all the cards. She didn't know that I was about to fold, walk away from the table, and then burn the whole casino down. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. I was the perfect boyfriend. I laughed, I socialized, I even danced with her. But all the while, my mind was working, assembling a plan with cold, logistical precision. The final act of the night was the bouquet toss, and I decided, right then and there, that it was going to be the grand finale of our relationship. Update 1. My plan required a few key allies and a bit of luck. The first person I approached was the bride, Maria. I caught her for a moment, while Claire was in the restroom. Maria has known me for years. She's sharp, and she's never been Claire's biggest fan. "Maria," I said, my voice low and urgent. "I need a huge favor. It's about the bouquet toss, and it's about me and Claire." She looked at me, her eyes full of concern. "What's wrong?" "She just told me that marriage is for men who deserve it, and that I shouldn't get any ideas," I said flatly. Maria's face went from concern to furious in a split second. "She did not. At my wedding?" She shook her head. "That's it. I'm done with her. What do you need?" The plan was audacious. I told her that instead of tossing the bouquet to the crowd, I needed her to do something very specific. I needed her to create a moment. She listened, a slow, wicked smile spreading across her face. "Oh, this is going to be so much better than just throwing it," she said. Next, I found my sister, Laura. Laura is a force of nature. She's a lawyer, and she has a flair for the dramatic. She was also my designated getaway driver. I gave her my car keys and a set of instructions. While the bouquet toss was happening, she was to go back to my house, let herself in with the spare key I'd given her, and pack an overnight bag for me. She was also to retrieve a small, very important box from the back of my closet. The final piece was the DJ. I slipped him $100 bill and gave him a very specific musical cue. He was a pro and just gave me a nod and a wink. As the time for the bouquet toss approached, I could see Claire getting excited. She and her single friends were positioning themselves at the front of the crowd, giggling and shoving each other like teenagers. This was her world, a world of superficial contests and public validation. The DJ called all the single ladies to the dance floor. Maria stood on a small stage, her back to the crowd, holding the bouquet. The traditional countdown started, but on one, she didn't throw it. She turned around. She scanned the crowd, her eyes passing over Claire without a flicker of recognition. Then her face lit up. She walked to the edge of the stage and down the small set of stairs directly into the crowd. The women parted for her like the Red Sea. She walked straight up to a woman standing near the back. A woman named Hannah. Hannah was a friend of mine from college, a kind, intelligent, and beautiful person who I had reconnected with a few months ago after she moved back to the city. We were just friends, but there was an easy chemistry between us that had always been there. She was also one of the few people I had invited to the wedding from my side. Maria handed the bouquet directly to Hannah. The crowd was confused, whispering. Claire was standing at the front, her face a mask of disbelief. She had been robbed of her moment, and then the DJ played my cue. The upbeat dance music cut out and a slow, beautiful instrumental piece began to play. All the lights in the room dimmed except for a single spotlight, and that spotlight swung from the stage and landed directly on me. I started walking. I walked past the tables, past the confused guests, and onto the dance floor. I walked past Claire, who was staring at me with her mouth open. I didn't even look at her. I walked straight to Hannah, who was holding the bouquet and looking utterly bewildered. I took her free hand. My sister Laura appeared at my side as if by magic. She handed me the small box from my closet. I turned to Hannah. In front of everyone, I got down on one knee. I opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant diamond ring. It was my grandmother's ring. "Hannah," I said, my voice clear and steady, amplified by the microphone the DJ had discreetly handed me. "I came here tonight, and I saw what a real partnership looks like. It's about love and respect, and knowing the other person deserves the best. Claire just reminded me that marriage is for men who deserve it, and I've realized I also want a partner who deserves the best. I know this is insane, but I'd rather take a crazy chance on a future with someone as amazing as you than spend another day in a relationship where I'm not valued." I paused. "Will you marry me?" The entire room was silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Hannah was in shock, her eyes wide. Claire looked like she had been turned to stone. Hannah looked at me, at the ring, at Maria, who was giving her a frantic thumbs up, and then back at me. A slow smile spread across her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." The room exploded. Update 2. The wedding reception devolved into the most glorious, beautiful chaos I have ever witnessed. As I slid the ring onto Hannah's finger, our friends erupted in cheers. David and Maria rushed over to hug us. My family was crying with joy. Claire, however, was not cheering. She let out a sound that I can only describe as a wounded animal. She started screaming right there in the middle of the dance floor. She was screaming at me, at Hannah, at Maria. She was calling me a monster, a liar, a cheat. Her friends tried to rally around her, but the tide of public opinion had turned so swiftly and so completely against her that they were left stranded. Most of the guests were either congratulating us or staring at Claire's meltdown with a mixture of pity and disgust. David, the groom, finally stepped in. He calmly walked over to Claire and told her it was time to leave. Her own father, a man who had always looked down on me, just stood there, speechless, watching his daughter unravel. She was eventually escorted out of the reception, still screaming about how this was all a setup. And she was right. It was a setup. A beautiful, intricate, and perfectly executed setup. Hannah, of course, had been in on the whole thing. The reconnection, a few months ago, wasn't an accident. After months of Claire's growing disrespect, I had reached out to Hannah, my old friend, and confided in her. The proposal wasn't a spontaneous, crazy act. It was a carefully planned escape hatch. Hannah, who had been through a bad breakup of her own, agreed to help me. She thought Claire's behavior was appalling and was more than happy to play the part of my surprise fiancé. The ring was my grandmother's, but the proposal was our performance. After Claire was gone, the party kicked into high gear. It was no longer just David and Maria's wedding reception. It was a joint engagement party. The joy in that room was real and overwhelming. My sister Laura had done her job perfectly. While the drama was unfolding, she had gone to my house. She didn't just pack me an overnight bag. She had hired a 24-hour moving crew that she had on standby. In the 2 hours we were at the reception, they had cleared every single one of Claire's belongings from my house. Every piece of clothing, every shoe, every book, every stick of furniture she had brought into the house was packed and moved to a storage unit. When I finally left the reception with Hannah, my new fiancée, we didn't go back to my house. I had booked the honeymoon suite at the hotel where the wedding was held. My overnight bag was waiting for us. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. It was a war zone. Dozens of missed calls from Claire and her parents, a flood of texts that ranged from threatening to pleading. I ignored them all. Instead, I sent her a single, final text message. Claire, you were right. Marriage is for men who deserve it, and a man who deserves it wouldn't stay with a woman who doesn't respect him. You are free to find a man you deem worthy. Your belongings are in Storage Unit 42 at 123 Storage Way. The code is 1234. The first month is paid for. This is my final communication with you. Then I blocked her number and the numbers of her entire family. Hannah and I spent the rest of the day laughing about the sheer absurdity of it all. We ordered room service, drank champagne, and planned our next move. The fake engagement had felt surprisingly real. We decided, right then and there, to see where this crazy story might actually take us. Final update. The weeks following the wedding proposal were a masterclass in damage control, mostly on Claire's part. She and her family tried to spin a narrative that I was an unstable, manipulative monster who had staged the entire event to humiliate her. They hired a lawyer and sent me a threatening letter demanding financial compensation for emotional trauma and for her share of the assets from our long-term partnership. My sister, who, as I mentioned, is a lawyer, had a field day with their letter. She sent back a response that was both legally devastating and a work of art. It included a detailed accounting of Claire's minimal financial contributions to our household, a copy of the deed to my house, in my name only, purchased before I met her, and a compilation of statements from wedding guests who'd overheard her condescending comments throughout the night. The letter concluded by stating that if they chose to pursue legal action, I would be filing a countersuit for defamation and for the repayment of several large personal expenses she had charged to my credit card over the past year. They went silent after that. The threat of having their own finances and Claire's behavior scrutinized in a courtroom was enough to make them back down. The social fallout was even more satisfying. The story of the proposal became the stuff of legend. David and Maria, my loyal friends, made sure the true version of events was the one that circulated. They told everyone about Claire's comment, about her disrespect, and about how I had simply taken her at her word. Claire, who had always been so concerned with her social standing, was now a pariah. She was the woman who had been so arrogant that her boyfriend proposed to another woman in front of her. She eventually had to move back in with her parents. Her marketing job, which was at a firm where social connections are everything, became untenable. She quit a few weeks after the wedding, unable to face the whispers and the pitying looks. As for me and Hannah, the fake engagement turned into a real relationship faster than either of us could have expected. The adrenaline and sheer absurdity of that night forged a bond between us that was stronger than any relationship I had ever known. We spent the next few months getting to know each other again, not as old college friends, but as two people who had found each other in the most unconventional way possible. We got married 6 months ago. It was a small, quiet ceremony on a beach with just our closest friends and family. David and Maria were our witnesses. There was no drama, no performance, just a real, honest commitment between two people who respect and admire each other. I learned a powerful lesson from all of this. When people show you who they are, don't try to convince yourself they're someone else. Don't make excuses for them. Just listen. Claire told me I didn't deserve to be married to her, and I finally realized she was absolutely right. I deserved so much better. And in the end, that's exactly what I got. She wanted to be the final word on my worth. Instead, she just became the first sentence in a much better story.